Reprenons, il est temps de reprendre nos échanges, le fil de cette journée.
Time to resume our work and our day's program. So you can continue talking if you like, but maybe you can whisper to each other. I suggest we have a look at the word cloud. So you are filling this. You online can give your word as well. There is a plethora of words here, a lot of them. Continue to note them, you in the room as well. So note these words. Remember, we are having a major conversation and exchange today. We want to take as many words from you as possible. So, following our work regarding the media and our projection into 2050, I think we need to think of a word that's regenerative. The regeneration sector is opening up in terms of momentum for companies, opening up possibilities for companies and others. And there are many initiatives which have understood that the environmental transition is important for the planet, but can also determine new models of economic prosperity. New professions are arising, new players. Until lunch, we've understood the importance here of having a plan, if you like. The person who's going to join me on stage, I'm going to leave the floor to him. I'm not going to stay on this stage. I'm going to give him the stage for a little less than 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And after having led the SHIFT project, he has created, in fact, the Fresque du Climat. So I'm going to ask Cédric Riegenbach to come on stage. He's responsible for Blue Choice. Cédric, I've given you the conductor's wand. You have a great public here and online, so I give you the floor. Thank you. Good morning. I am going to speak of ecological transition, and for that I have to start with a short introduction on a formula, an equation which allows us to think of the transition in a kind of intuitive way. And to start, I'd like to remind you of a few figures. Today, in the world, you have 20 truckloads per second dumping textiles in landfills or incinerators. So that is a subject of discussion. Now, with this introduction on the Kaya equation, which allows us to decompose the problem of emissions into several subjects. Here we're talking about CO2. We divide this by energy, by GDP, and the population. This is interesting because it breaks down the problem into several subjects with these multiplications. The first thing is the carbon intensity over energy to produce how much we need to produce a kilowatt of energy. Then you have the energy intensity of the economy. How many kilowatt hours to produce 1 point of GDP? Then you have the question of economic growth and the population. So for the CO2, if we want to reduce emissions, we're going to have to act at the level of one of these elements. So first way, decarbonation of the energy. We can improve the efficiency of the economy. We can reduce growth, or we could, in fact, reduce the population. So what are we going to do? If we tell you, if we speak of renewable energy, what do you think of here? Wind power, solar, I've read your thoughts,
Éolien
in
photovoltaïque, c'est ce qui vous
fact.
vient
You know,
le plus
wind
rapidement à
power
l'esprit. Et
and
d'ailleurs,
solar
ce
panels
qui est
is
assez
what comes
impressionnant,
to
c'est que ça
mind
représente
mostly.
15%,
And what's
plus
interesting
15%
is that this
par an
represents
d'augmentation. Donc ça
plus
va assez vite.
15% increase per
Maintenant, si je vous
year.
montre le mix global,
Now,
voilà ce que
if
ça
I
donne.
was
On
to
a
show you
en fait
the
l'hydroélectricité, c'est
global
le plus gros
mix, we see
des
that
énergies renouvelables. Alors si je
hydroelectricity
mets
is
l'hydroélectricité
the
dans ces
greatest
énergies
of
renouvelables, j'ai
the
plus qu'une
renewable
progression de
energies.
plus 4% par an. C'est
And it,
évidemment impressionnant, mais ça
if
reste
you see
intéressant.
that wind
Donc je
power
vais aussi
grows by
rajouter le
plus
nucléaire parce que ce n'est pas une
4% per
énergie
year,
renouvelable, mais c'est une
if
énergie
we look at
décarbonée.
nuclear
Et on a
energy,
plus
which
de
is not
4% par an
renewable but
sur les énergies
decarbonized,
décarbonées, c'est pas mal.
you have
En revanche,
about
on a quoi?
plus
On a le
20% a
fossile.
year
Le
of
fossile, ça baisse
decarbonized
ou
energy.
ça
What
augmente?
about fossil
Ça
fuels? Do you
augmente, vous avez
think it
raison. Alors ça
decreases or
augmente de 1%
increases?
par an.
It
Voilà. Donc
increases
entre plus
in
4 et
use
plus
by
1%, on se dit, ouais,
1%
plus
per
4 et
year,
plus 4, elle va
between
gagner.
plus 4 and
Alors
plus
ben, même
1% on
pas,
the
en
other
fait,
hand.
parce que l'énergie
And
décarbonée, c'est grosso modo
the
15% du mix mondial.
decarbonized
Donc
energy
en valeur
represents about
absolue,
15% of
le
world
fossile
mix.
progresse plus
In
vite que
absolute
le
terms,
renouvelable. Et puis de
fossil
toute façon,
fuel use
c'était même pas ça
increases
la
more
bonne question.
quickly
La bonne
than
question,
the
c'était de faire baisser
renewables.
le fossile tout
Now, the
simplement.
goal,
C'était même
though,
pas
was to
de voir
reduce
s'il
the
progresse plus
share
vite
of
ou moins vite que le
fossil
renouvelable.
fuels in our
Donc, on est
energy
encore très loin du
mix.
compte en ce qui concerne les
So
énergies
we're very
décarbonées.
far
Ça ne se
from
décarbone pas
the
assez vite et on ne va pas y arriver si on compte
goal
que
of
là-dessus.
decarbonized
Pour faire baisser les
energy.
émissions de CO2, il va
To
falloir
reduce CO2
absolument
emissions, we're going to
faire
have
baisser
to
la consommation d'énergie.
decrease energy
Pour ça, on peut
consumption.
faire par exemple
To decrease
de
energy
l'efficacité énergétique. Alors,
consumption, we can
ce
have
qu'on gagne
energy
depuis des décennies,
efficiency.
c'est on
What
gagne
we
1 à
have
2
been
par an.
gaining over the decades
Donc c'est
is
intéressant, mais
saving
ça
1 to
risque de ne pas
2% a
suffire.
year, but that
Donc non
is
seulement ça ne va pas
probably
suffire, mais en
not
plus,
enough.
ces gains de
Not only
productivité, c'est plutôt
is it
une espèce
not going to
d'accélération en
be
avant.
enough, but what
Et
we
je sens
see, in
qu'on est
fact,
en train d'aller
is
dans le mur. Donc si
we
on
have
accélère, on va
an
être vite pris. C'est pas une bonne idée.
acceleration, in fact, in
Donc si
energy
ça ne suffit
use.
pas,
So
qu'est-ce
we're
qu'on va
going
pouvoir
straight
faire? On
for
va
the wall.
pouvoir
So
commencer à
this is not
réfléchir
enough. So
à
now we're going to
faire
have to
baisser le PIB.
think about
Alors, on n'est pas
decreasing
tous prêts à
GDP.
aborder
Now,
la
we're
question de la
not
décroissance, mais
all ready
ce que je vais vous proposer, moi,
to deal with the
une certaine façon
question
de dépasser le débat
of
croissance-décroissance et de vraiment poser
decreasing
la question de ce dont on a
economic
vraiment besoin.
growth.
On n'a
Now,
pas
how are
besoin de
we going
PIB dans
to do
l'absolu.
this?
On a
I
besoin,
mean, we
il y a des
don't
vrais besoins qui sont
necessarily
derrière le
need
PIB, et c'est de ça qu'on va parler
GDP, but
juste
there
après.
are needs
Alors,
underlying the
dernier
GDP, and
point,
that's what we need to talk about.
pour faire baisser
Now,
les
to
émissions de CO2, bah, on va essayer
decrease
de ne pas toucher au terme
CO2
population et de plutôt
emissions,
dire que ça,
we are
c'est une
not
donnée du
going
problème
to
et pas une variable d'ajustement.
try to work at the level of the
Alors,
population because that is a given.
maintenant, pour arriver à parler de ce
Now,
problème
to
des émissions de
talk
CO2,
about the
on va
problem of
prendre l'équation de
CO2
Kaya
emissions, we
et on
take
va la
the
projeter dans différents secteurs
Kaya
économiques pour voir ce que ça
equation
donne.
and project it in different economic
On prend par
sectors
exemple le secteur
to
du
see
textile au
what is the
hasard et
result.
qu'est-ce que ça donne
If
si
we
je
take the
projette l'équation de
textile
Kaya dans ce
sector,
secteur,
if I
c'est-à-dire que je
project the
remplace le terme
Kaya
PIB
equation
par
or
des vêtements et des
formula
chaussures qui ont été
here for the
produits.
textile sector,
Donc on
I
a
replace the
d'un côté, on voit
GDP
apparaître
by the shoes and clothing
l'énergie
produced.
qui a été
So here
dépensée
what
pour
we
produire un
see
vêtement
is the
ou une chaussure.
energy used to
Donc ça, c'est
produce a
l'énergie
piece of
grise. Hein. Il a
clothing.
fallu l'énergie pour produire
That you
n'importe quel objet.
needed,
Et
you
puis, on a
obviously need
également
energy to produce
le
any
taux
object.
d'équipement, hein, le
Then
nombre
we have to look
d'équipements
at
de chaussures par
the
personne.
equipment rate,
Voilà.
that is to say, the
Donc,
number
on a l'impression que
of
des
articles of
notions...
clothing per person.
voilà, on a l'impression que les deux notions
So
du
we
nombre de
get the
vêtements et de chaussures
impression
produits
that
sont les mêmes, mais en fait, pas exactement, parce que
these
d'un côté,
concepts are
quand
the
on dit
same, the
l'énergie grise
number of
des objets produits, c'est les objets produits chaque année.
clothing per
Alors que de
person.
l'autre
Now,
côté,
here we're
on
talking
a
about for each
le
person.
stock
On the other
des
hand,
produits qui sont dans
you
nos
have
armoires.
the stock of
Donc d'un côté,
clothing
il y a un flux
already
annuel, de l'autre
in
côté, il y a un
our
stock.
cupboards.
Donc mon
You don't
équation,
have
là, elle est
just the
cassée.
production, annual
Et
production,
pour la
but you
réparer,
have
je
the
vais introduire
stock.
les termes qui
So
manquent et ça
this
va
is where
faire
you have a
apparaître la durée
disruption
de vie des produits. Hein.
in
Parce
the
que, en
formula.
fait,
And
pour
so
avoir le
we're
même taux
now going
d'équipement,
to have
si les objets
the
durent plus longtemps, il
duration
y a
of
besoin de les
use. Now,
renouveler moins souvent.
if we
C'est
have a
linéaire,
longer
c'est
lifetime
proportionnel,
for
c'est
the
mathématique.
clothing,
Donc la
then
durée
you will have to
d'utilisation, ça
produce
va nous
less.
amener à une
This is a
réflexion
linear
sur, d'une
equation.
part, la
If
durée de
we
vie des objets,
talk about
qu'ils durent le plus
duration,
longtemps
the
possible,
lifespan of
et
the
l'obsolescence
items
psychologique.
of clothing on the one
Par exemple,
hand, and on the other
réfléchir
hand,
à qu'est-ce qui est à la
you
mode, qu'est-ce
have
qui n'est
the
pas à la mode, par exemple.
psychological obsolescence of these same pieces of clothing.
Donc là,
What
vous
is
voyez, on est sur des
fashionable,
choses
what
qui
is
sont beaucoup plus
not.
intéressantes. J'ai vu
So
l'image de mots
here
tout à
things are
l'heure.
more
J'ai bien aimé
interesting.
le mot
I looked
réparer.
at the
J'ai bien
word
aimé le mot réutiliser.
word cloud. I
Le
like the
mot
word
recyclage,
repair,
faut pas
reuse. The
espérer non
word
plus trop du
recycling,
recyclage.
we shouldn't
Hein.
hope
Quand
for
on
too
est dans le
much
textile, en général, le
from a
recyclage,
recycling
c'est
because
de la
in
dégradation
textiles, recycling is really linked to deterioration, downgrading of the product for an inferior use, whereas reuse is reuse at the same level. So to work on the duration, this is one path to study, which is very interesting for all of us. Go, next slide. Now, now that we've disrupted the Kaya equation, now that we've repaired it, we're going to look at how we reduce CO2 emissions. We took the equation from left to right, and we have an intellectual blockage here because in the end, we're all going to die. And so what I would like now is we take the equation starting from the right and go leftwards. So we start with the population. The term population, we will be almost 11 billion on this earth by the end of this century. And this is not a question of readjustment, that is a given. So give or take 1 billion, depending on the scenario. Here, this is not something which is exponential, it is stabilizing. Because by the end of the century, most countries in the world will have finished their demographic growth. So when we ask the question of sobriety, how much do I need? So before we spoke of reduce means we have to think and ask the question, what do we really need? We live in consumer societies where we buy to make others happy, we buy so as to show we're richer than the neighbor, etc. So we start really mixing what our desires and our needs. Now, when you have we are in a world which has a limited carbon budget if we want to reduce CO2 emissions on the planet. So in a world where this we have a carbon budget, the desires of people will be to the detriment of the fundamental needs of people elsewhere and of other people later, including their children. And what this means is that this is something we cannot avoid. So the first thing when we want to talk about transition, we need to identify our real needs. Then, and here we need to think, in order to ensure our fundamental needs, what do we do? What do we do to ensure our fundamental needs with the least amount of resources? By repairing, by reducing our needs and thus reduce pollution. So we have to increase the duration, lifespan of the products, reduce the number of products, and then we have to try to do away with the psychological obsolescence. So we're going to continue to optimize. I said that in the economy, generally speaking, we save about 1 to 2% energy per year, depending on the sector. And this is because we are smart, and the year after that, we do better. So we are able to, improve the energy efficiency in factories. So this is something we will continue. But the last thing will be to try to decarbonize what remains. So the rationale for decarbonizing the economy, it's not a question of reducing the energy by producing nuclear, renewables, etc. No, the first question is, what are my needs? And then you need to satisfy your needs with the least physical flow possible. And then we optimize. And we decarbonize what's left after that optimization. But in passing, we shall have reduced the quantity of energy needed to produce these needs. So what are the risks linked to the transition risks, in fact, or opportunities? If you're here, it's because you're concerned about environmental challenges, climate change. Probably your company has made commitments and has made a commitment at the level of the CDP, has made an SVTI commitment, and you consider that you are doing your share by making this type of commitment.
Vous avez pris des engagements
Now you
et
have made
vous
commitments,
vous dites que vous faites votre part. OK,
and
très
you
bien.
are saying, well,
Mais
I'm
les risques de
doing my
transition,
share.
c'est autre chose. Imaginons que cette
But
transition ait lieu pour
the
demain.
transition
Qu'est-ce qui
implies
va se
other
passer pour
things.
votre
Let's
business
say
model?
that the transition is for
Et je
tomorrow.
vais poser la question
What is
autrement.
going to happen to
La
your
transition, elle
business
a lieu en ce
model?
moment ou pas?
Is the
Bah non.
transition underway
Les
today?
émissions de CO2 augmentent
No.
chaque année.
We see that
Donc on n'est pas en
CO2
train de faire cette
emissions
transition. À
are
mon avis, il faudrait,
increasing
je ne sais pas
each
si vous
year.
avez les chiffres, mais il faudrait
So
faire
we're
moins
not
5%
making the
par an au niveau des
transition. We
émissions
should have at least
mondiales.
minus
Moins
5% per
5% par
year
an. Le Covid
in
en fait moins 7.
emissions worldwide
Pour vous dire comme
to
c'est lourd et
be
moins cher.
on the road to
Le Covid donne
transition.
les
And
effets
we're
beaucoup
not
plus
doing
simplement.
that, remember?
Donc il faudrait faire l'équivalent de ce qu'on a
So
subi pendant le Covid tous les ans.
we would have to do the equivalent of what we
Donc c'est énorme.
suffered during
Et aujourd'hui, la
COVID
transition
every
n'a pas lieu.
year.
Elle n'a pas lieu
Today, it's
pour
clear the
10 000
transition
raisons.
is not
Des
underway
vraies raisons.
for thousands of
C'est
reasons.
vraiment compliqué de faire cette transition.
And
La
one of
marche
the
est très haute.
reasons is that
Voilà.
it's very
Bon, bah,
complicated
listons toutes
to
les raisons
carry
pour
out
lesquelles
this
cette transition n'a pas lieu.
transition. So there's a whole
On
list
les
of reasons
liste
why the
et après on se dit,
transition
OK,
is not
maintenant on va
underway.
faire l'hypothèse que
So
cette
we list
transition, elle
these
a lieu.
reasons and we say,
Et donc les
okay, let's
conditions à
say
réunir, on fait l'hypothèse
there's a
qu'elles sont réunies les unes
hypothesis
après les
that
autres. Voilà. Donc ça,
transition is
évidemment, ces
underway. The
conditions, c'est vous qui allez
conditions
faire en sorte qu'elles
have
soient
been
réunies. Et puis de part et d'autre, ben, ce sera l'autre personne qui va s'en
united to be
occuper.
able to
Quelquefois,
do this
le changement de
transition. That
comportement,
means that
c'est le consommateur. Quelquefois, c'est les
you've
lois.
created the conditions
Quelquefois, c'est
for
les
this.
entreprises
Sometimes it's
qui
the
fournissent enfin le service que
consumer,
vous en avez besoin.
sometimes it's the
Il y a plein de choses à
companies
faire en même temps.
which do what's
Voilà, c'est pas vous qui allez tout
necessary to
faire.
embark on this
Mais
transition. You're not
faites
going to do
l'hypothèse
everything,
que
but
chacun fait sa
everyone's
part
going
de
to
cette
have to
transition,
do his share,
notamment que les
play
changements de
his
comportement ont
role
lieu,
in the
notamment que les
transition.
législations se mettent
So
en
the
place.
changes will take
Faites
place.
cette
This means the
hypothèse-là et à ce
legislation
moment-là,
for that
posez-vous la
has to
question de
be in
savoir
place as well.
quelles sont,
Then you ask yourself the question,
quelles sont les conséquences pour
what
votre
are
business model.
the
On a
consequences on your
parlé
business model?
de réduire la consommation globale
We've spoken of
de
the need to
produits. Voilà.
reduce the global
Qu'est-ce que ça veut
consumption
dire
of
pour vous?
products. What does this mean for
On a
you?
parlé également de réparer.
We spoke of
Aujourd'hui, en général,
repairing.
on achète, on jette,
Today, we
ça va plus
buy, we
vite.
throw away
Éventuellement, on
faster.
réutilise, c'est-à-dire qu'on va
Sometimes we
mettre
reuse.
ses affaires chez
That
Emmaüs
is to
pour
say, you're going to
soit que
take
ça aille
your
chez quelqu'un
things to
d'autre
Emmaüs so
dans
that
une
they can be
friperie,
used
soit
by someone
pour que
else,
ça fasse
or
des isolants thermiques. Voilà. Ce n'est pas le
so
meilleur usage possible,
as to
mais
be
je vous
used
conseille les
for,
isolants thermiques au prix des fringues qui sont dedans.
the
Et ça ne va
generation
pas beaucoup peser.
of thermal energy.
Donc, réparer, c'est quelque chose qui peut
Or
devenir une
maybe
activité
they're going to be
économique.
used for
Donc là, c'est un changement de
insulation
business model.
purposes as
Alors,
well.
vous allez me dire, oui, mais ça
So
se
you're going to
fait,
say, well,
il y a des
we need to
entreprises qui
make a
réparent
change
des
in our
vieux films de
business
briques.
model.
Mais ça
Well,
ne se fait pas encore à très grande échelle.
this
Voilà.
is not
Est-ce
really
que
done
c'est
on a wide
viable
scale for
économiquement? Pour l'instant,
a
j'ai l'impression que c'est un
shoemaker
peu
or
flottant au
else
commun.
elsewhere.
Je ne sais pas à quel point
Now,
c'est quelque
is
chose qui
it
est
also
véritablement éprouvé la
something which
rentabilité.
is
Mais voilà
possible
les questions qui vont
financially
se poser
viable?
pour cette transition.
So those are the questions that
Donc c'est un peu
arise
ce
for
sur quoi
the
on travaille chez Blue Choice
transition,
quand on
and
accompagne
this
les
is what
entreprises,
we are
c'est
working on at Blue
réfléchir aux
Choice.
risques de transition.
We
Donc,
accompany
en
companies
tant que
to in
responsable
their
d'une
reflection
entreprise, en tant
on
que
transition
décideur
risks.
économique,
As an
votre
economic
responsabilité n'est
decision
pas
maker,
seulement
your
d'aller réduire
responsibility is
votre
not
impact
just to
sur
reduce
le climat, d'aller
your
réduire vos émissions de CO2,
impact
elle est
on the
également
climate, that is to
d'anticiper
say,
la
to
suite,
reduce CO2 emissions,
d'imaginer
but
des
you
business
also
models qui
need
seront
to
compatibles
anticipate what
avec
follows.
cette transition,
Imagine
de
what
manière à
business
ce que vous ne
models are
fassiez pas
compatible with the
partie de ceux qui
transition
font un lobbying pour
so
empêcher les lois
that
d'arriver,
you will
mais que vous
not
fassiez plutôt
be
au contraire
those
partie
who will be
de
part of
ceux
the
qui vont
lobbyists who
pousser
are
les
trying to
bonnes législations
prevent
sur le
the
climat.
laws from being
Voilà, je vous remercie.
adopted, but on the contrary, that you be among those who are promoting the adoption of those
Merci
laws
Cédric,
which will
c'est
enable
le
the
moment d'échanger.
transition. Thank you,
Là, si vous avez des
Eric.
questions, c'est le
So,
moment. Si vous avez des
Cedric, so
questions
now
également en
we
ligne,
have
c'est le
time for
moment.
questions. If you
Vous ne devez pas hésiter.
questions here or online, don't
Il y a
hesitate.
une main levée ici, le
I
micro
see
arrive,
a
merci
hand
beaucoup.
raised. Let's give a microphone here. Thank you.
Bonjour, Karine Vierge, je suis directrice du développement durable des Galeries Lafayette.
I'm at
Ma question, c'était sur l'équation des
Sustainable Studies at Galerie Lafayette. My question with regards to the textile sector, why do you have to start with
C'est pas
the
l'équation de Kaya
equation
pour le
from right
textile qui est
and
comme
not
ça,
from left?
c'est l'équation de Kaya dans son
The
ensemble.
Kaya
J'ai remarqué un peu par
equation,
hasard que
and this
la
affects
façon dont
not
on
just
avait
the
tendance à prendre
textile
les sujets
sector,
sur le
but I was
climat,
saying that the
c'était de
way
prendre
we deal
l'équation de
with
Kaya de la
subjects
gauche vers la
on
droite en se
climate
disant
is to take the Kaya equation from left to right, we look at CO2 emissions, how do we decarbonize, etc. But when we realize this is not enough, you're going to realize this is not going to be enough. If you want to reduce energy consumption, you have to look at energy efficiency. A savings of 1 to 2% a year is not enough. Then you come to the question of less economic growth, and people are not ready for that. So then you think, well, we'll never get out of this situation. We're all going to die anyway. So that would be the natural approach. I take the equation from the other end because I think it's from the other end that you need to start and reason. So you need to take the GDP out of the Kaya equation, as you saw. You take out the GDP and you put what you really produce. In that case, you disrupt the equation. And in this way, you can differentiate between the needs, the real needs. I need to have a jacket, and the physical flow of production. When it's used and worn, then I'll have to replace it. But what's important for the moment is I need a jacket. And the physical flow can be questioned, and we can have an impact on the physical flow. Then, last, we're going to contribute to, we're going to continue energy efficiency and save 1 to 2% a year. But in the end, it's only in the end, do we ask the question, what needs to be decarbonized in terms of what we produce? If you reduce energy consumption, you can reduce carbon emissions. If you divide this by 2, if you eliminate coal, because that's the highest carbon content, well, because you have eliminated what is most carbonized, you're going to improve by more than 2%. But if you continue with this energy consumption level, we're like a hamster on its wheel, in its cage. We continue to produce the CO2 emissions. Other questions? Yes. Thank you for your presentation. I'm from Regeneration. We are a company concerned by the third R, recycling. And I think that what you said is very well presented. You tended to decrease the importance of recycling. I agree with you that this can always be improved, but I think that the recycling will be a data that has to be part of the equation for 2 reasons. First of all, if we if we ensure that our business become as circular as possible, then there's the reuse, obviously, what is going to be recycled, what ends up in the south, etc. If all these flows could be re-injected and recirculated, in fact, if we look at the recycling processes, have controlled energy use as well. I agree that we have to reduce, use less, but if we don't recycle waste, I mean, we don't have a second planet to ship the waste to. Yes, we have to recycle, of course. What I was simply stressing here is that if we only focus on recycling, this will not be enough. It's one of the bricks that has to be implemented. That we see people talk more about recycling in their communication rather than reduction.
Une question, madame, là-bas.
Yes?
I'm
responsible CSR from District Français and District Français, in fact. And what about what we propose to our customers is that we want to have a profitable business model. We know that the alternatives are more expensive. So how do you reconcile the economic challenges and the simple fact of continuing to exist, which is essential for all brands, and all of the different challenges that exist? So how do you reconcile business and CSR? Well, I know that underwear are not the easiest thing to repair and that you represent le slip français, French underwear. Now, before answering the question, I'd like to underline, in fact, the initiative of the slip français, which is to sell by a subscription to lower the price. I think that the Sales Act in all products is half of the savings. If you sell by subscription, you have a network, etc. If you have this subscription-based sale, you are going to really reduce this production. You only produce what's necessary. I'm a fan of a number of brands which sell by subscription. I'm a fan of this. I think that if the economy worked more like that, then it would enable us to reduce a great deal those things which are not absolutely necessary. Marketing, fine, but I need the jacket. But if there's marketing on for this jacket, then I pay for that marketing. I think that in other textile and shoe activity, there's a real challenge linked to repairs. Maybe not underwear, but there are many objects that can be repaired and which can have a longer life. Now, this point very often goes very much in line with an eco design, a design that allows for this repair. And there's also the question of the system organization, because if it's a question of sewing a button on and there's no buttons available, well, that becomes a problem. So if you standardize certain pieces of clothing, then you can repair them. So then you need to have more complicated logistics circuits. But there's a challenge here, of course. There's a stake involved, and customers have to agree and think, okay, if I take my jacket to repair, it's half the price of the jacket. It's okay. But otherwise, if it's more, then I will buy another jacket. Even if it's 50% of the price of the new object, then for ecological reasons, they'll buy it. But more than that, no. Cédric, excuse me. A question from Stéphane, who's online. What is the legislation underway at the French and the European level that the brands have to respect? I'm not that familiar with future legislation, but I think that there's already some things that need to be done with regards to indicators. I think that there are design indicators in the pipeline regarding repairability. This already exists in the electronic sector. Repairability in the textile and shoewear sectors is something that should be studied. A repairability index would enable the customer to understand the subject, and this would enable people to differentiate between fast fashion and others. Now, if you were to ask me, I'm quite radical. I would forbid advertising. And then, well, this is not yet in the making, but if we were to be logical, we would have to forbid advertising, but have another type of information for consumers coming from consumer associations, from specialists, from purchasing coaches, etc., who really know their product. The difference between the two is that you have to give objective information rather than subjective information on the product. I think that in this way, we would save from that point of view all over the world. But on top of that, you would have information on products, which would enable people to make enlightened purchases and to ensure that the products they purchase are really the best ones. Now, this is an utopian vision of things, of course, more long term. Perhaps it might provoke a reaction in the room.
If we remove advertising, you think people won't go out to buy their clothes? No, they'll go on going out to buy their clothes, but only what they need. A very last question, maybe. No? Online, maybe?
Une question.
Yes, a short question, please.
Je vais faire court, mais là, on parlait de l'équation de Gaïa et du coup des émissions
We
de
talked
CO2.
about the Gaia equation,
On voit un peu
CO2
tout sur le
emissions.
textile, 2, 4, 8,
But for
10%,
textile, we see
c'est
2,
une
4,
augmentation, donc il y a de plus en
8%,
plus de produits
and the
neufs qui sont dans le
emissions
marché,
are
etc.
increasing. There are more and more new
Je me pose la
products
question si vous
on
avez
the
une idée
market.
du réel
Do you
ordre
have
de
an
grandeur
idea of the
des
true
émissions réelles de
figure
CO2
concerning
du
the CO2 emissions for the textile industry? Between 4 and 8%, depending on how you count. Now, it's not just the CO2 footprint. There's also water, there's the BOD impact, and to work on that, if you only work on decarbonization of energy, you don't address the other topics. If you work on the volume, physical flow, there you can improve not only CO2, but also the water footprint, biodiversity, etc. Thank you. So we have a lot of work ahead of us with the Gaia equation. We talked about tomorrow. We talked about how to do this with the Gaia edition. Now we could also talk about talents and skills and the jobs. Who is going to do everything? We'll have Sophie Delille, responsible for rayonnement, Ticket for Change. We have Frédéric Matisse, we have Isabelle Cabrita, and Elsa Chassagnette.
Bonjour, bonjour, installez-vous.
So take a seat.
Installez-vous, je vous présente le public. Et il nous regarde aussi derrière les caméras.
We have the audience here, plus the people online.
Je voudrais qu'on fasse un très rapide tour de table pour
very quickly,
continuer un tout petit peu la très rapide présentation.
Let's introduce yourselves. We'll start with Isabelle Cabrita, designer and repair and founder. Good Gang Paris, it's an association. The mission is to make people aware of the textile overconsumption thanks to experiences, especially in the area of repair. Because doing yourself is a good way to understand. So there's a question of looking, rediscovering know-hows that we have more or less transmitted in our families and recreate, because a repaired garment is in fact a new product. Thank you. So you answered my question, even a question I had not yet asked. Frédéric Matisse, School of Ecological Transition. What is it in 30 seconds? Well, these are schools that train, accompany young people between 16 and 25 who have dropped out of school, and we teach them new jobs in the area of repairs. It's located close to Toulouse. We have 19 schools today, and we hope to have many more in 2027. Well, thank you. Sophie Delille, Ticket for Change. What is Ticket for Change? When adults did not go to that school yet, but they ask themselves about ecological transition, what can I do at my scale? Well, Ticket for Change is there to help them maybe set up a business or change something in their business. So we accompany people in this field. Elsa, responsible for the Fonds Réparation, the repair funds at Refashion. So, could you maybe set the scene on those jobs, these crafts, in fact, in a few words? How can you clear the ground? So yes, in the area of repair for textile and footwear, two families of jobs, even if they're close. On the one hand, we have the textile repair, rework. This has increased its number of structures, but they're still fragile jobs because in fact, people set up a little business as a second job often. And on the other side, we have the shoe repair business. We only have 3,500 structures today. We've lost a huge amount of these shoe cobblers. Many people have retired, and no one wants to get involved in this business anymore. In these two types of jobs, same typology. That is to say, people have a sort of ideal view of the repair, a little business at the corner of the street. But we also have new digital platforms. We have many people also who were working in banks, and all of a sudden they decide to come back to a small business, a craft, a more craft approach. And we want to regroup all that to make up a repair family. And this will make it possible maybe to take on the future challenges, even if the know-how is very old, ancestral. We need these families to come together because the needs are there in the area of repair, and repairs are going to develop. There's a premium for repairs in France. It's coming up in 1 month. We want to increase by 35% repairs by 2028. And the demand is already above the supply. And this is what the small businesses tell us today. And on top of that, we are going to make the consumer aware. We're going to speed up this movement of repair. It's going to be, in fact, a way to make these jobs more attractive. And why do we want to make these jobs attractive again? Well, first of all, we need to repair rather than throwing away. We have more and more brands who are interested in the topic because it goes hand in hand with customer loyalty. They also need a network, and we have to develop the network with the federations. It's not just Refashion on its own, but Refashion wants to, in fact, support that sector. And we have to accompany re-industrialization, because this is something that existed up to the 70s, 80s. We had repair shops for footwear, and this has disappeared. So if we want to, raise the scale, we have to reindustrialize all these sectors. We have to convince people that it's a job of the future. So that's fine, but you say that there's more demand than supply. So what can we do over a short time to make these jobs attractive? Frédéric, you have an idea here. How can we make these jobs more sexy? Now, we say that the jobs of tomorrow will be manual jobs. We're convinced of that. But what is important is to bring value back to these jobs that are maybe, ancient. And in fact, in the intellectual jobs today, you're just sitting behind your computer and you use your keyboard. When you have a more manual job, the environment is completely different. We had this idea something like 20 years ago, and everyone said, no, manual jobs, ecology, craft. This is not interesting for young people. Today, we accompany something like 1,000 young people per year. We have to go faster, and this is why we work with training organizations to work at a higher scale. But I think, young people are looking for a purpose, a meaning, and so I think that we can use that. So I'm very optimistic, especially in moments like this one where we can discuss this openly. Yes, so a quest for purpose, for meaning. So we want to make these jobs more attractive. A lever that seems important to me is to make these jobs desirable right from school. And so when people come to see us, we tell people, what are your talents? And we try and break this image that was given to them maybe at school. What are your desires? What are your talents? And often people arrive and they say, I've always loved manual work, but this was never valued. But I'd love to do something with my hands. I'd love to do something tangible. In fact, I work in an office. So this is something we see very often. And so these people will be, will accompany them. And until they come to us, they didn't know that, manual jobs were great. And in fact, the shoe cobbler is like a magician in a way.
Vous, Isabelle, il y a
And Isabelle,
cette notion effectivement dans le fameux grand récit dont on parle beaucoup.
In this big story we're talking about, to in fact make these jobs attractive. When you work with brands or people you meet, what do you see? What do the brands, do they understand? I work with people for the repairs, and what I see is that often there's an emotional dimension with the garment we bring to repair, to alterate. Whatever the garment, but it takes an added value if you've made the effort to find a solution to go on wearing it. Sometimes the garment has a story, or it's just very comfortable, nice to wear, and you don't want to throw it away. And since the job requires some creativity, because the problems you can have with a garment, it can be very different. You have to invent something, a solution. So it's creative work, and it becomes, a very special garment after the repair. Elsa, you shared a few examples. And just before you talked about reindustrialization of something that existed before. Now, are there brands that have started the process? If we're talking about industrialization, no. But there are brands that are changing their model. The ERAM group with La Manufacture, they have set up a repair workshop in their production plants, and they can rebuild your shoe in a way. And do they consider this as industrialization? I don't know. We'll have to ask them. And we have brands like Bompard. They have a workshop with many people inside who repair the holes in your sweaters. So manual repairs are done. So yes, I think we're moving towards such approaches. So we're talking about the jobs of tomorrow, but there are jobs that already exist, and how can we accompany them? How can we train them to go towards these jobs of tomorrow that were in a way the jobs of yesterday? Sophie or Frédéric? I was thinking about the former question. We're talking also about care, maintenance. We work with a company, it's not fashion, but they produce organic croissants or things like that. And when their machines fail, they buy a new one. So the whole question of maintaining, caring, that question is to be put at the heart of training also and education. And now I think that there's also the question of meaning, purpose. We know that there are many ecological transition sectors that have a shortage of labor. So, we can invest billions in the repair approach, but if we don't have the people to do the job, it won't work. So we consider that if we work in these manual jobs, we actively participate in the ecological transition. And we, in fact, focus a lot on doing, to do, how to do, and doing. Today, with the young people we work with, they're pretty desperate. They're very pessimistic for many reasons. But we work with companies, and we want to create the dialogue with the companies to tell them the way jobs are perceived have changed, the way environment is perceived has changed. And it's important to have a dialogue. And how can we put these jobs at the heart of our societies? And Sophie, you have a few ideas about this?
Moi, j'ai envie de continuer ce levier
Well, I would like to once again insist on education and the storytelling. It starts at school. It's important to change the mindset, the way we see success, professional success. Like yesterday, you work, good job, you have an intellectual job. Well, already employees do not want this anymore. If we look at the surveys, what the French people want, in the area of employment, they don't talk about, career development. They talk about fulfillment and purpose. So the good news is that the mentalities are changing, and the mentality of the employees also. And succeeding in your career, well, there's not just one model. It's for each person to question and think about his or her values. So I see things changing a lot with the people we work with. But I think that the system, the education system, the training system, still based on the old model. Intellectual jobs is the thing. No listening. You're not asked to listen to what you feel and your talents. And I think it's important to develop this. And in this way, we would make many of these jobs attractive. Isn't it also a question of money? Making a job desirable, giving a purpose, fine, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and we don't have that much time. In a few years, we need to have a good balance between supply and demand. So I put money on the table. There are many manual jobs that are well paid. And here we can work with the companies. Today, you know, the narrative, what we say is not enough. Now people are going to look into everything that is said. So it's more overall work and doesn't take that much time. My grandmother at one point told me, what you're selling, in fact, is common sense. Yes, in a way, we, you know, we're all aware, well, still a few exceptions, but overall, we are aware. We know. We know what is meaningful, what's the purpose, and now we have to all work in that direction. A question in the room? I can see there is a question. Online also. Don't hesitate in asking questions.
Je ne sais pas si on m'entend bien, j'ai pas beaucoup de voix.
Ah, on va monter le son.
I don't know if you can hear me.
It's
not really a question, it's not really on jobs. It's just to talk, we talk about repairs. So imagine a hole on a jacket or in a shoe, but I would like to recall that maintaining, caring, it's a topic we don't talk very much about today. It's not, in fact, included in education, I think. And it's an important topic because there are things that you cannot repair. You know, so if you could also talk about caring or maintaining, we always imagine the whole, but there's also a lot of things before reaching the whole. Yes, before the whole or other things, because sometimes you don't use your sweater because it's all distorted, you wash it and it doesn't get into shape anymore, and then you decide that no longer fits you, and for that one there's not much to repair, you know.
Merci beaucoup. Non, c'est une assise importante.
Yes, it's an important aspect. Elsa? Well, there are many things we can repair. Nearly everything can be repaired. What is not really repairable is bad quality raw materials, for example. And then, okay, that's one thing. But if you move away from that, nearly everything can be repaired. Isabelle could talk about the knitting and better than I, but for caring, yes, caring, maintaining is essential before the repair. Now, we're not really talking about maintaining today. Now, I have my bias. I work for Fonds de Réparation, but yes, of course, care and maintaining is essential and should be part of education also. You wanted to say something? There are different types of repairs. I do what I call visible mending. And then you have invisible mending. And there's a topic that I find important is, you know, we shouldn't attach too much importance to the question that the repair is visible, the mending is visible. And I think it's interesting also for the repair professionals. They should introduce that dimension, your creative dimension of the mending, you know, and sometimes you offer a solution that you had not thought of. And in the area of sweaters and knitting, okay, if it requires a lot of skills if you do not want the repair or the mending to be seen. But if you're ready to accept this sort of message on your sweater, then the whole thing becomes more fun. Alicia is following us on internet. The price of repair, should that be capped or not? The price of repair. You know, repair should be available to everyone. And, you know, to have your shoes repaired for the same price as a new pair, this is it can't work.
Alors déjà, je pense qu'il serait malvenu de parler au nom des artisans
Well,
et de leur dire
I
quel
don't
prix
think we
ils doivent
can
pratiquer.
speak on
Par contre,
behalf
il y a un constat
of
qu'on a
the
fait, nous, chez
shoe
Refashion, avant la construction du fonds réparation. On a fait
repairs,
des études,
but at the
consommation
time we
des
did
études prix,
some
etc. Et on s'est rendu
market
compte déjà qu'il y avait une
studies,
énorme distorsion,
and we saw that there
plus
was a
pratiquée suivant les
big
professionnels.
distortion
Et
between
notre prise de
the
parti,
prices and
c'était
the
de dire,
different
mais à un moment,
professionals. And at one
revaloriser
point we decided the
la
following,
réparation, le geste
you
de
know,
réparer
giving
le
more
savoir-faire, c'est
value
aussi
to
valoriser
the
le coût de la réparation.
repair
En fait, faut arrêter de
know-how
croire que ça ne coûte rien de faire réparer.
makes
C'est
it
un artisanat comme un autre, c'est un
possible
artisanat
to
français, donc
explain
même
a
pas de
higher
charge
price. You
additionnelle,
know,
tissu des
it's a
augmentations de
craft,
matières
it's a
premières
manual
phénoménaux
work. You
comme les
need a
autres.
know-how.
Et en fait,
All the
il
raw
faut
materials have
vraiment
increased,
que
so
les
we
artisans
need
assument
to
le fait de se
value
faire payer au juste
those
prix
interventions,
de leur
and
travail. On a
the
besoin de ça pour revaloriser les métiers de
repairs
la
have to be
réparation.
paid the
C'est pour
right
ça aussi qu'on a
price
le
for
bonus
quality
réparation qui
repair.
arrive,
And
parce
this
que
is why we
justement,
have
on sait que ça a un coût,
the
on sait que faire
repair
réparer,
bonus
c'est
or
une démarche
premium
vertueuse,
that is
mais
going
on a
to
besoin
arrive.
d'accompagner et de
You
sensibiliser les
know,
consommateurs
we
là-dessus.
want to go
C'est pour ça qu'on propose
in that
un
direction,
bonus
and
qui
we
va aller
need
de
some
6 à
support.
25 euros suivant les
And
réparations
the bonus or
éligibles.
premium
C'est
will
pas
be
rien.
from 6 to
On sait
25
qu'on a du travail
euros.
aussi parce qu'aujourd'hui, le
And
coût
we know
moyen
that
d'un vêtement
there's
vendu en France,
a
c'est
lot of work to
2,50 €
do,
et que le
because
coût
the
moyen de la
average
réparation en
price
France, c'est
for
19
a
euros.
garment
Donc
is
évidemment qu'il y a un problème de
12.5
base
euros, and the
et
average
que le
cost for
bonus
a
doit servir à
repair
ça aussi,
is
à
19
combler un peu ce
euros.
gap.
So
Donc
of
le
course
sujet
there's a
financier, il
little
est
gap
vaste.
here. So the financial
Mais
issue
moi,
is a
j'encourage tous
big
les jours
one,
les
but
artisans
every day I
à faire en
encourage
sorte que leur métier soit
the
rémunéré à leur juste valeur,
craftsmen
qu'ils arrêtent de se
to make
brader.
sure their
Ouais.
job
Là encore,
is
on est
paid
face
at
à
the right
une industrie tout
value.
de suite, à Austriatum qui...
Yes,
Il y a un amalgame forcément entre le coût du
and
vêtement qu'on achète
of course, people keep
fabriqué
in
un peu
mind the
loin
price of
et ce qui se passe
the
dans
garment
un
they've
petit
bought that
dans un
comes from a long way
Une question
away, and
tout
the
au fond,
price of the
tout au
repair.
fond, une question
Here, there's
Ah
an
oui, je
issue.
vois une main levée tout au
A
fond.
question at the back.
Justement, bonjour. En
Good
parlant
morning.
de la question de la fashion, donc à
Talking
remettre
about
un petit peu ce mot-là aussi
fashion.
au cœur du sujet, parce qu'on va l'avoir sur le concept de la consommation, du coup de la fast
Fashion,
fashion. En parallèle, la partie
consumption, fast
réparation, derrière, il y a
fashion.
le slow
On the other
fashion.
side, you have
Est-ce qu'on pourrait
repair, maybe, and
marketer
slow
ici
fashion.
comme une approche
Could
différente de
we
customiser,
market
dans le
that
sens où on
approach? You
va
know,
plutôt avoir
we
une
could talk
approche
about customizing
qui va
your
s'approcher peut-être de la
products.
fast fashion,
Uh,
c'est-à-dire quelque chose qui va être différenciante, la
if
personnalité de la personne qui va
if we talk
l'avoir,
about
et du coup
customizing
de
a
donner de la valeur
customized
à cette
product rather
réparation
than a
au-delà du
repaired
côté
product,
écologique qui peut
it will
parler à
be
certaines
closer to
personnes,
the world of
mais aussi du
fashion.
côté
And it
un peu
has
plus
also
artistique, un peu
the
plus,
environmental
on va dire, dense,
dimension,
qui va
and
parler
it
peut-être
has
à
also an artistic
Bien sûr.
dimension
Il faut faire
that
un
will
début de
be
réponse et je
more
vais passer la parole à
appealing
Isabelle, je pense qu'elle
for
est mieux placée pour le dire.
people.
Moi, je parle toujours de réparation, je ne parle
I
pas d'upcycling, etc.
always
Parce que
talk
le texte de
about
loi fait que
repair or
fond de réparation, il
mending.
parle réparation, donc un usage dégradé, on redonne un usage. Ça
That's
peut être du visible mending,
the terms.
effectivement.
It can be
Mais en tout cas,
visible
le visible
mending,
mending, aujourd'hui, c'est
but
une partie
visible
infime, mais c'est une partie qui
mending
peut
is
être
just a
marketée. Et
very
effectivement,
small part.
reprendre de la
Yes, you can
visibilité sur la
do
réparation. Et je pense
marketing
que ça va
around
venir
that,
là-dedans
fine.
s'illustrer
And
Isabelle et
this
Hugo
is
dans cette
maybe
logique de marketer
what
la
Isabelle is
réparation.
doing and Good Gang Paris is doing.
Effectivement, il y a la question, enfin je reviens sur la question de
Yes, and
l'argent
coming
et
back to the question
aussi
of
la valeur
money.
d'usage plutôt que
It's more
de
the
plutôt
value
l'upcycle
of using rather
du
than the
vêtement qu'on
actual
achète. Et
price
du
of
coup,
the
la
garment you're
customisation, bah, c'est
buying. And
s'approprier une
customizing
pièce
is
et donner
making
vraiment une existence
a
particulière.
garment your
Donc
own,
effectivement,
giving
le
that
visible
garment
mending, pour moi,
a special existence. And visible
c'est un bon
mending,
moyen de
for
rentrer
me, is a
de
good
façon ludique
way
dans un principe
to
de réutilisation. Et après, je pense que
reuse
ça peut
things in a
rejaillir
fun
sur
way.
une approche un petit
And
peu plus sage, on va dire, un petit peu plus
yes,
discrète.
it can
Et
then
du coup, quand on a commencé
lead you also to other types of mending.
comment dire, à
It
rentrer dans
doesn't
le jeu de
always
la
have to be
créativité, de la
mending,
customisation par la
but
réparation,
you
du coup, ça
can
devient
have
plus
recourse,
sensé de se dire, bon, alors ce
to
vêtement-là, il a besoin
creativity,
d'être réparé, je vais
customization,
investir
rather
un
than
peu
thinking, okay, I need
pour
to
ce dur, mais
repair
ce sera
this or
un petit peu
that, and
plus
it,
sage
it's going
comme
to be
réparation.
maybe a bit
On en revient finalement à remettre
expensive.
du sens aussi.
So
Sophie, je vous regarde parce que remettre du sens, c'est aussi essayer de changer un peu la mentalité et le comportement
now,
et donner un
what
peu de
is important
désirabilité
here
vers
is
des
maybe
vêtements
to change a
ou
bit the
des chaussures
mindset
qui
of
sont
people
un petit peu différents.
and making the repairs
En
more
tout cas, moi,
desirable.
en réaction, je trouve qu'il y a un gros enjeu
Well,
sur, encore on en revient au récit, hein, mais sur aussi réinventer les métiers de l'influence, du marketing,
there's also
sur
the jobs of
tout,
influencers
voilà,
and
de la mode
marketing.
et de ce qui
You know,
est
they're
désirable,
involved in fashion. They play a
comme
role in
vêtements
what
à la
is
mode. Et ces
desirable.
gens-là, je me dis, mais en
Uh,
fait, les influenceurs, là, aujourd'hui, ça n'a rien à voir
Influencers
dans ce
today
qu'on donne
don't do
à voir et
anything
à
in this
désirer,
area.
notamment aux
Uh,
jeunes.
you
Je trouve
know,
qu'il y a tout un champ à réinventer
there's a
au
whole
niveau
thing to reorganize in this area.
du marketing et de l'influence en lien avec la mode.
Il y avait une question là, monsieur.
Oui, j'avais juste une petite question. On a
A
parlé tout à l'heure de
question.
l'entretien et justement, il y a
We
une partie
talked
des
about
textiles qui sont
caring,
aujourd'hui jetés
maintaining our textiles.
ou mis au
People
recyclage,
throw
sont
away their
tachés et souvent,
products today just because of
citoyen
a
ne trouve pas toujours les
stain,
solutions pour
and the
détacher.
person
Est-ce que ça,
does
c'est
not
un
always
moyen
have a
aussi d'augmenter encore les
solution?
volumes
Is
entre
that a
guillemets réemployés,
way
en tout cas qui ne soient pas
also
perdus
to
et pour
increase
l'envisager
the
aussi? Est-ce qu'il y a
volume
des
of
choses qui sont réfléchies
reuse?
aujourd'hui dessus et ça répond?
Do we
Ça
think
rebondit sur la question sur
about this
l'entretien
today?
tout à l'heure.
And this is close to maintaining and
Qui
caring
veut
for your
s'emparer de cette
clothes.
question?
Je porte un vêtement taché.
Ah,
I, for example, have a
Je
garment
voudrais
here
comme
with
ça
a
juste montrer
stain.
vivons avec nos tâches.
So, okay, let's live with our
les
stains.
broderies que vous voyez
Ah oui, d'accord.
derrière.
And that's
Dans
the
mon dos, ce sont des
embroidery you
taches.
see at the back.
Une
There are
partie là qui était
stains.
vraiment récalcitrante. Et donc,
I couldn't
j'ai
get
pris le
rid of
parti
them,
justement
so
de
I
faire un visible
decided
mending en
to
suivant
do
le
a
contour des
visible
taches
mending.
uniquement.
I just followed the
Et du coup,
contours
cette question
of
des
the
taches,
stain. And so
ça
the question
rejoint la
of
question de
stains,
la
this
visibilité
brings us back to the
de la
question
réparation et de la
of
qualité
the
du vêtement.
visibility of the
Il y a une
repair, the mending, and the
stigmatisation
quality
de la
of
réparation parce que ça se voit, parce que ça fait peur.
garment.
Des gens qui
And
refusent
there are some people,
de
you know,
porter des vêtements réparés
who
parce qu'ils ont peur que
refuse
ça
to
leur
wear
gâche,
clothes
etc.
that have been mended
Je pense qu'il
because
faut
they consider it,
un peu
it
redonner
damages
une
their
vision
image and it
de
makes
la
them look
réparation comme
poor.
au
We
contraire
have to
quelque
change the
chose
image
qui est un message
of
d'une
repaired
action
or mended
positive,
clothes. We have to make people
volontaire,
understand
activiste.
it's a
Enfin, voilà, après
positive
on donne la forme qu'on veut,
action.
mais c'est un
We
moyen
can
aussi
imagine the message we
de
want,
semer des petites graines
but
et de passer des
it's a
messages.
way also to plant a few seeds and get some messages
Vous,
through.
Frédéric, vous pensez que tous les jeunes qui passent dans les écoles
Frederick, do you
c'est
think
quelque chose
that
qui leur
all
parle?
of the young people who go to the ed school, in fact, are doing this because we speak more of maintenance than repair? I would invite you to read an extraordinary book called, in French, Le soin des choses, which would be the caring of things. So the first thing I would say to the young people, and they're not all that young, and then there's this question of awareness, this extraordinary responsibility of the brands, and to reinvent, if you like, the narrative, the storytelling. What we realize is that the young people who come to us are not aware of these ecological issues. They're a bit more aware of them when they finish, but these are subjects that are outside of their scope, and that is the digital impact. With it, the digital impact is not all that visible for them, even if on the social media networks. And the other thing is fashion. We have fashion victims, of course. And when we try to explain this whole issue of the problem of garments and clothing, that they're a waste. And so there's a real challenge for them to refocus on this and becoming aware of this. Yes, me again. And I saw in the videos where you questioned people, I saw that consumers desired that brands set up repair services for their products. I know that the brands are contributing. They have an eco contribution for repairs, but do the brands not think that if they were to set up this type of service, well, in fact, it would be a kind of reward for the consumer who comes to have a piece of clothing repaired rather than buy a new one? Well, I don't know, but we need that the brands educate their customers as well, that they extend the message to others with regards to repair. But I think that the capacity of the brands to be educational is limited to their networks, their customers. But they could perhaps spread the word of repair regarding to the need to repair clothing, get the message across to their customers. And this also to develop a service. The repair economic model is complicated, especially for the upmarket brands. So maybe we need to think about this with them. But I think that we need to, first of all, work with the crafts activities, regarding repairs before the brands can offer a complete repair maintenance service. Now, I don't want to go into the red zone. So for me, it's repair. Let's see what your R word is. So to resole for shoes and re-knit for knit clothes. Well, for us, the state of depression of young people today is a real issue because we are faced with a major crisis among youth in general. And I think that we need to bring a new vision to the issue. So my word was être heureux. Be happy. I think that the word re-enchant is a good thing. To re-enchant, reinvent sustainability. Thank you. All these words are going to fuel the cloud. I would say rewear in French, reporter, rewear. If you repair, it's to be able to rewear your clothing, not a play on word, which would mean postpone till tomorrow. So rewear.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Alors, il faut faire ce mouvement-là, comme ça, vers moi, et puis ce mouvement-là
you
derrière les
need
fauteuils.
to
Mais en fait, vous faites
come towards me and then behind the
Merci beaucoup.
chairs. Thank you.
Nous allons lancer maintenant une autre page,
We're
une nouvelle
going
discussion, un nouveau
to
format,
launch
une
a
grande
new
conversation
discussion, a new format, another
sur vos idées.
major
On va
topic
parler
here.
de la mise en place d'une
We're
offre
going
de seconde main.
to talk about setting, how do you set up a used offer, a second-hand offer, or a used offer, yeah. And so we're going to have examples after the jingle.
Alors, je prends la tablette. La tablette, ce sont vous derrière votre écran.
The tablet is for the questions that come from online.
Merci d'être.
So thank you for being with us, with the public. So now we're going to go to the heart of this subject. So what is Phone? Phone is a company I co-created with 3 associates 3 years ago to accompany brands for the operational setting up of a second-hand offer and to accompany the brand business model to accompany their brands in this market throughout the world. And all of a sudden, this came to your mind, this idea came to mind? 3 years ago, when we created our company, we were all, totally flabbergasted by COVID. And so we wanted to better understand the fashion industry its challenges from the transformation point of view. And little by little, looking at what the market was doing, we saw that there were two observations. First of all, you have about 40 garments put on the market with a usage rate of 30%. Second observation, that in the last 20 years, the textile production has doubled. The price of garments have decreased by 30%. And so there's a real lack of coherence. Then looking on internet, we saw in fact a secondhand site in the US called Patagonia on internet, and we wondered how Patagonia could organize its secondhand infrastructure and how we could do the same thing to help brands in Europe. So what do? You go see a brand and propose managing this. We come as a blank brand. In fact, we have several customers, Bash, and you have a second-hand site which has the colors of the brand. The customers can go and resell their garments. Then you can have an online platform with the physical network of the brand, whereby the clothes can go to their warehouse to be reconditioned and then sold as secondhand. So you have all of the various operations that have to be organized because each product is unique. We work with the partners on the logistics, for example, textile reconditioning, clean them, repair them. If necessary, we repair 10% of products, photograph them, and then put them on the site for a purchasing experience. Is it profitable, the model? Yes, it is. It was balanced right from the first year. And if we want to totally transform the brand business model, you have to offer profitability. For the model has to be scaled up for it to be profitable. And we have a roadmap to help the brands. By 3 years' time, they have to have the same level of profitability for secondhand as what they obtain when they offer their products on sale at 50% off. You have about 20% of brands which are in secondhand shops. So if we want to help the brands reduce the cost of the number of products they put on the market and reduce the number of products they put on the market, then we can work like this. Should I listen to the little voice in my mind that says it's working now, but it's profitable only for the upmarket brands? Well, there are different approaches. We specialize with the upmarket brands because we wanted to go from a fast fashion economy to a quality-based economy, which is secondhand. And with regards to that, we put a lot of meaning into the product. Rather than buy a new product in a fast fashion store, well, obviously today, the purchasing power is really important, and with fast fashion, they said, well, we want to democratize access to fashion. So with the clothing you purchase at a reasonable budget, you can be in fashion. What we want to do is give access to a better quality brand and to give the brands an access in secondhand sales. So in fact, you have a platform. Yes, the platform is interesting for the brands on several levels. Secondhand is an understandable commitment in the eyes of the end customer. It can be positive from the branding point of view. It also allows you to reach different audiences, a younger target group, and achieve loyalty. In addition to that, given that acquisition costs are exploding, access to a secondhand garment is a new channel which is accessible. On a given distribution channel or market, a second-hand is going to lead us to try to achieve 3-5%. Now, we, we'd like to target 10, 15, 30% volume in the future. Adele, I'd like to recall you are responsible for the reuse at Refashion. And so to try to identify the question secondhand, what economic model? Well, there's something that's interesting. We saw the repairs earlier. Here we're speaking of secondhand. So here in our technical specs, from the environmental impact is concerned, we want to lengthen the lifetime of the product. And so we want to accompany the brands with this. With reuse, you have new modalities. And in our challenge, the challenge is the economic model, because here you have a player which is profitable. But you need to know that many of you have tested reuse models which are not profitable. So what we want to do is open the way and enlighten you on this. We went, in fact, in Great Britain to see, how there they work. We went to see an reconditioner, which is profitable, which has been and who has been working on the field of reconditioning for 25 years. So these eco-retailers, in fact, exist, and we can help the sector structure itself. So we have learned a lot here. There are many things to be learned. In addition to that we are convinced that by creating bridges between the historical players and new actors, we can have a diversity of offers and projects in the second-hand activity for textiles, and perhaps we will achieve our dream that by 2028, 1/3 of French buyers will have indeed accessed the second-hand sector. So for us, there are many subjects that we are going to deploy in the years to come. I'm not saying that we will achieve the solution in 2-3 years' time, but we are going to be offering various economic models whereby the second-hand solution will be a real alternative to fast fashion. Are there questions, comments, experiences you would like to share here in the audience? Yes. And on the web, of course, as well. Yes. Yes, j'ai des textes. I have the following question for you. By focusing on the upmarket brands for secondhand business, don't you worry about impoverishing the rest of the secondhand market, which would lose its interest? Secondly, how do you integrate the consumer when he has a garment which is perhaps not really apt for second use? How can you reorient them? I'm not sure I understood the first part of your question. We, once again, our objective is to enhance the quality of the products put on the market in the secondhand sector. So we have no problem working with the upmarket brands which produce better quality products. Once the regulatory framework will have evolved with the European directives which will force the brands to communicate on their product information for the consumer, this should lead to better quality products in the market. So this should enable us to extend the potential of the secondhand market if you have more quality products in the market. And in that case, we will increase the potential of products resold in the market. I don't know if that answers you.
Sur la partie
What about where to orient people whose clothing is not of quality to be reused? Well, to do a business model that works, you have to maximize the quality of the product marketed. So we are going to enable each brand to control the brand, the offer they will make in the secondhand market. But there are some products which will not be in good shape to be resold. And in that case, we need to create the network to connect all of the players in the sector, all of the sorting, etc., to organize collection of these non-reusable products. Once they've collected the product, then we will have to have partnerships with associations. We're developing a partnership with an association which is well known to send part of the stock that we have, where the brands consider the quality is not sufficient to be resold in a secondhand shop, but which is still of correct a level of quality which is okay, so as to be used by others, and then also work on the collection of garments which would go to other recycling possibilities. So we've existed for 3 years now. We have several questions. Identify yourself, please. Yes. Luana Lanel from Emmaüs, France. Our economic model also is based on the sale of quality upscale products. In my association, Emmaüs, our turnover figure enables us to finance our social actions, and this is based on the quality of the products we sell. Now, what we observe is that if the upmarket brands are going elsewhere to be sold, this will impoverish our stock of products to sell to our customers and then finance, as a result, the social actions we organized. So if part of that quality product is in fact deviated to these secondhand shops, then how will we work? I don't know if you've thought about that. You also say that your secondhand offer is on the sites of these brands. So I would like to know, does it go into competition with the new product is offered? Because have you reflected on whether or not the secondhand offer has an impact on the sale of new products? I think that the quality of products is going to increase in the market, and so there will be more product available. And I think that we can discuss this later on a one-to-one basis. But, we have people in our team who are in contact with the people at Emmaüs to reallocate part of our stock to you, part of the stock we've collected to you. And this so that we can work together to see whether there is a category of product which can be of interest to you, and this so as to fluidify the allocation of these products, and so that you can in fact draw value from that market. And with regards to the second question, have you noticed whether or not the offer of a secondhand line is going to compete with the new product sale offer? No, I think this is really targeting new customer groups, younger people who like the brand but can't afford it. So at the level of our brand, 70% of customers who buy this secondhand offer are new customers to the brand. So there's no cannibalism between the two, if you like.
On va démarrer avec madame, parce que j'ai dit tout à l'heure que c'était madame.
So this lady,
Une question ici. Et
yes, Adèle,
j'ai retenu quand même que le
I
modèle que tu es allé voir en
retained from
Écosse
what you said that
était
the
rentable depuis 25 ans.
model that
Et
you
ça
went to
m'intéresse de
see
savoir
in the
pourquoi.
UK, in Scotland,
Mais pourquoi?
has been profitable for 25 years. So we'll talk
Est-ce que
about that
pour vous, il est
after.
plus difficile,
Rapid
est-ce qu'il est plus
question.
difficile de capter un gisement
Do
de
you
qualité,
think
puis en revendre sur
it
ces
is
plateformes, ou
more
découvrir ce qui est
difficult
proposé sur ces
to
plateformes?
get these quality products on the platform or to sell them? For us, the issue is to be able to obtain quality stock. It's the sourcing issue. And then as far as selling is concerned, when you compare the entry and exit price, we can indeed control the profitability of the project and the flow. I'd like to say something. This morning, we spoke a lot about the collective thought and reflection on this subject. Here, we're actually speaking of accessing the source of these products. And I think that this is going to call on some intellectual reflection by all of us. We need to sit around a table and think about the system, think how we can reorganize the system to and see there's room for everyone in this sector, but we need to reflect upon it. So it's good to see what's being done, but we have to look at how the market is affected. And I thought it was interesting to have these different players with different projects and to see how we can work together, how we can propose things which are interesting for the citizen, but we have to look at how we can support different projects without being in competition, working in cooperation. Yes. I'm Pascal from Petit Bateau. I'm launching a project at the moment, and I would like to know how to be profitable in this second-hand channel. And for you, Émeric, Petit Bateau produces sustainable quality products, but we're not upmarket. So what are the keys for us to be able to make this second-hand offer in a profitable way? So that is to say, the approach for quality brands which are less upmarket. I don't have all of the keys to the business of this Scottish company, but in the UK, there's already a trend with rentals. You know, they have the rental of kilts in Scotland. And then they start working with men's suits and women's clothing on a rental basis. And then a good of their turnover business, their business turnover is very often linked to people from the clothing rental sector, which are source of clothes for secondhand for them. So this is something that we have to build together because, there are certain social manifests that are important. And so we have to bring together different players. We don't have a lot of kilts to sell, do we? No. But for ceremonies, clothing for ceremonies, tuxedos, weddings, these things, yes. I must say that, I thought that Petit Bateau was a pioneer, and the second-hand business works relatively well at Petit Bateau. I think today that our business model would not really be suited to Petit Bateau today because in our model, the product authentication, quality control, repair, reconditioning implies a certain amount of logistical costs. And the profitability of secondhand sales implies that you create a margin between the purchase of the product and the sales of the product. So it means about 40-50% in terms of margin. Once we apply our commission, the logistics costs, etc., leads a margin of 20-30%. So the higher the value of the product, obviously, the better the margin for you. Then if we can extend the service as much as possible, there are different ways of doing this. Maybe have a reconditioning operation depending that is linked to the category of product and the quality of the brand. But this obviously is going to imply certain technical choices, and this will determine the profitability of the model. There are different ways of doing this. There are different vectors in the market. What's really crucial initially is that what is the value that it has to be brought to the customer so that this will differentiate you from the major platforms, traditional platforms. Then we need to find those savings which will enable you to have the profitability. So first you need to create the usage, and then you can optimize your solution. Maybe one last question. Yes? Jean-Michel Hudon Mater. The question today is not so much how you valorize the 10 or 15% of clothing which is usable. How do we improve the quality of the source today? How can we ensure that 85% of textiles in the market not be totally deteriorated? Thank you for the question, the end question. Yes, as far as the products in the market are concerned, either we develop recycling solutions to recondition them, and we're not the people to answer the question because we're not recycling. But as I was saying earlier, there's going to be a regulatory evolution, which means that you're going to have products which are eco-designed. And when a product is produced to be resold several times, and the brand has to produce a quality product. So the quality of the product and this market will be based on the business model that's developed in line with the regulatory evolutions, which will push people to put eco-design products in the market.
Voilà, j'arrive dans la zone rouge.
I've come to the red zone. Eric, Adèle, same exercise as the others. Are a rare word that was not already used. Remake. Refaire in French. Well, there are so many words anyway. Refaire, okay, remake. It's the idea that you learn as you go and to do things differently. And it's by doing things that you will have an impact. Reinvent. And this reinvent the cooperation. Together we will we'll find a solution to the issue and develop an economic model for tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention.